How going?
Alright. I think I'm good. I think I'm good. I hope. I've got the share screen. Okay, sweet.
Fantastic.
Good to go.
Alright, so I'll just post those links on.
Yeah, I've got a new link just in case.
Okay, sweet.
I'm gonna die.
Okay. Is it still muted?
No, yeah, the sound's still on.
Is it still muted?
No, yeah, the sound's still on.
Shout out to all our listeners. Is it still muted?
No, yeah, the sound's still on.
Shout out to all our listeners. Uploading the document. Why? Yeah. Oh, it's going to go onto Facebook, let's see. No, it's not going to work. I'll share it from my Dropbox.
Okay. And then I can give you the link as well for the live stream.
Yeah. Did you Facebook it to me? It'll be on my Facebook.
Oh, yeah. Facebooked it to me. Yep. There we go.
Hopefully that. Can you try that link and see if you can access the slides? I just posted in the event.
Oh, TeamMED used to be here.
Alright, I'll get everyone to start coming in then. Even though most of our speakers are here.
Oh, really?
Have you seen Eddie?
Any click?
He's speaking second, that's all.
It didn't come.
Miriam.
Oh, awesome.
Didn't post.
Wait, no, I think it did. I just haven't refreshed it. Here we go. Recent posts. Discussion. Yeah. Do you want to do like a.
So they can still hear me talking now.
Yeah. I was going to say maybe write like a. This is the live.
Yeah, I was going to go on and do that in a minute, but.
Yeah.
Okay. That's cool. So that is now on the YouTube.
Yeah. Oh, it's got that though. Swap this.
Oh, swap displays, yeah.
Does this next work? You're joking. Okay.
Present to me? Oh, no, that's not right. Put it on the book.
It didn't. It was right like a second ago, literally. Did that work? Why is that doing that? Are you serious? Why?
Yeah, I'm gonna put this back and I'm gonna start heading towards the pizza. I'm gonna leave my bag there.
Yeah, it's alright.
But yeah,
Yeah, just leave the door open. When worst comes to worst, we'll just do it like that. But
Yeah. Hi. Sorry about this. Okay. So I've got the presentation going. But I've got it in presenter mode, but it's opposite. So on the left hand and on the board is the presenter mode, and then the actual presentation is coming up on her laptop. How do I switch them? Yeah. 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 It's got presenter view, set up slideshow, custom show, presenter slideshow, record slideshow. Yeah, it doesn't have a thing that says to switch it, or like number 1 or number 2.
Hey!
Pardon?
Yeah,
I know you.
Yeah.
I know you from.
Bendigo.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
But I was not imagining that.
No, not that I can see. I can present it normally, but it just automatically comes up as presenter mode, and I can't actually click anything on the left hand,
You know when you're up? No. Okay,
which is really annoying.
Your third speaker. Before dinner.
Oh yeah, great.
And all your slides. Some of it, I had to check. I put them all in one thing,
Yeah.
so I've changed a little bit, but hopefully all the information's the same.
Yeah. I just don't know how to turn presenter mode off.
I was like,
It's just got a tab and it's got presenter view, or you can go play from start. So in my mind, that's like play from start. Or you can do presenter view. If I click, I tried both, and both times it comes up as presenter mode. Yeah, I know.
okay.
Alright. Yeah.
Okay, so if I go into systems, if it lets me.
You can have a front row seat and we'll just call you up when
Oh, I see. Yes. Okay, wait. I think. Oh, I've got it. Swap displays. Okay, fuck. Okay, all good. We're all good. Okay. Yeah. I'm sorry for like the text. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, man. Okay. Bye. Okay. Oh my god.
No, you did all of that. I appreciate it. Oh, and we could study at the same time. Oh, wow.
Do you want me to put the link up on Monash Met, or just would you rather take it?
Yeah, put it in Monash Met because that's where most people.
Yeah. And do you want me to put the slides up as well?
Yeah, you're welcome to.
Okay.
I just haven't. All right, are we good to go? Oh, nice. Hello, friends. Thanks, Jen. I really appreciate it. Your water? Hi guys, you probably don't remember me. I'm Katie. I've been rural the last 2 years, so that's where I've been. I'm the 4th year rep for TeamMED. Firstly, I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. I'm sure everyone's really excited about the electives. I think most of us are 4th year, so that we get to do next year, and hopefully tonight we'll provide some information about what direction you should take in deciding where you want to go and then planning the trip and making it a reality. We have our fantastic sponsors here tonight as well. They're out in the foyer. You're welcome to have a chat with them, but they'll also be presenting briefly. We also have some wonderful speakers who are ex-students who are going to tell us a bit about why they applied for their elective and what they enjoyed about it. Just if you haven't heard of TeamMED, it's the Global Health Club, one of the Global Health Clubs for the Monash Med course. Some of the things we do are run medical outreach trips, and I encourage everyone to consider doing one next year or even after 4th year. If you're interested in going overseas for an outreach trip. These slides are on the event, by the way. One thing TeamMED does, and in our role, we make an electives guide that we publish every year. This can be found on the TeamMED website, and this provides sort of the information we're going through today and some more specific resources that you can use. I know everyone's really excited about dinner, so this is just the timeline of what we're going to go through. We've got a couple of speakers, and then we will have dinner and an opportunity to chat to our sponsors, and then some more speakers, hopefully be out of here by... So first I want to invite Kelly and Ben from Buongiorno Group to briefly mention what the work they're doing.
Thank you very, very much for having us here tonight. Take this very seriously, the whole TeamMED. I know that we've been with TeamMED from the start at Buongiorno Group, and it's fantastic what you guys do, so well done. But the reason I'm here is, we talk about the Buongiorno Group, and I'll talk about it shortly, but the reason I'm here with you guys tonight is to show you the ProMed student loan. A few of you have had the issue that, you want to take on all these fantastic adventures and help out people around the world, but potentially having money right now is quite difficult. Student loan could come in handy. Now, the Buongiorno student loan, or the ProMed student loan, came about because of this, and it's a little bit different to a normal loan. It's payable back in your internship year, because we understand that right now you might not have a great deal of cash flow and all the rest. Now, you have access to it when you're in your penultimate and final years. Conversation with a girl at the back just before was that you don't ever need to draw down the money. So it can be used as a safety net just in case you might not have enough money if you're sitting there tonight thinking, well, look, this is fantastic, but again, a small little potential problem might be the fact that I don't have all the money I necessarily need. So again, you can take out the loan, and if you don't use it, that's absolutely fine. You don't get charged any interest along the way. And like I said, it's payable in your internship year. Just quickly on what we do at the Buongiorno Group as well, we look after doctors and dentists with their finances, insurance, financial planning, and their tax. We want to make your lives as easy as possible, because I personally I know absolutely zero about medicine, but at the same time, I get a lot of doctors that come to me and they absolutely have no idea of how to tackle their finances. At the Buongiorno Group, in your first year, you'll get a free year. So that includes us completing a tax return. We can also help you complete your tax return right now if it is that you are taking on part-time work. And we really do want to help you guys. So, that's a little bias. So please, if you would like some more information, come and see me outside later. But at the same time, we want to make sure your lives are as easy as possible when it comes to your finances. I won't take up any more of your time, but if you do have any specific questions, please come and see us later. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Ben. So our first speaker today is Miriam. She is a current 5th year student, and she's going to be talking to us about the application process and what we need to do to make our dream elective a reality next year.
Hi everyone, so my name is Miriam. I'm, like Katie said, I'm a 5th year student, so I actually haven't been on my elective yet. So maybe take everything I say with a grain of salt. But I'll be talking you through the process and how to apply for an elective and how to approach how to choose your elective, I guess. The first thing that I thought I would talk about is Monash electives. So if you don't go overseas for your elective, you can opt to choose a Monash elective. So that basically what that involves is we have our specialty rotations and our elective rotations. So the specialty rotations are basically a list of rotations that Monash Health offers in different fields, and we get to put our preferences from 1 to 7 when we choose our rotations in 4th year. You guys will do that soon. And those rotations are then opened up at the end of in about October for people who want to take their electives to choose the remaining placements, if that makes sense. So basically you'll get a list in October of all the remaining rotations. So this is just like the first few. So for example, I think haematology in rotation 3, there are 2 placements available, but in the other 2, in other rotations, there are none available because people had already chosen those placements for their specialty rotations, if that makes sense. So that's basically, you'll get a list and you can choose of those which ones you want to do. An email, you'll get this email, sorry it's really small font, but you'll get this email in October. We got it the 10th of October. And it basically, you'll get the email, and that email with your preferences, numbered 1 to 5, of which elective you would like to do. And then you have to apply on a first come, first served basis to get your elective. So if you really got your heart set on something, I would recommend refreshing your email a lot in October. It seems like a really unfair process. You might be in theatre, you might not have your phone on you, you might not be checking your email, but that's the system, or that's how it was last year. A friend of mine said that he sort of replied within 10 minutes and got his second preference, so I guess it kind of fast. So basically, so you get this email on the 10th of October, and then on the 13th of October, we found out all of our 5th year placements, and those who chose a Monash elective also found out their Monash elective placements as well. So does that all make sense about Monash electives? Yeah.
Sorry, so you don't actually find out your like specialty one until after this whole process. Like you might not even know if you've got your specialty one first before you then try to apply for it.
Yeah, actually that's a good point. I didn't think of that, but yeah, because you find out your specialty rotation on the 13th of October. So
then you can't like apply again, like you haven't got your specialty.
Yeah, well, I guess you could kind of see if your specialty one is on the list, like if it's, you know what I mean? Like you kind of just look to see if your specialty one is on the list.
Which it shouldn't be, because the only reason that you wouldn't get it is if multiple people wanted it and somebody else got your their high preference. So if you don't have it, somebody else has taken it and it won't be available for elective. Right. Yeah. But if it's there, that doesn't make sense. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Someone else has to have it, otherwise it's on realistically. Yeah, otherwise why would they have
Yeah, thanks. That clarifies that. Cool. So any other questions about Monash electives? Oh, okay. Okay, so in terms of once you've got your Monash elective or your overseas elective, in terms of verifying the whole process and making it official through Monash, it's quite simple. You basically have to, this is all on Moodle, and there's a Google document that you have to fill in. So you click on this link here, and it's just like a Google form, and you submit your name, your rotation, and like the name of your supervisor and things like that. And there are different deadlines for different rotation dates. So this Google Doc will be open at the end of this year for those who have their elective in rotation 1. So as you can see, the application, this formal application through Monash is due on the 19th of December, or was due for us in the 19th of December for rotation 1. But it opens later and it ends later as well. So that's pretty much that. If you're doing it overseas, you do need to upload, or if you're doing it not through Monash, sorry, I should clarify, you do need to upload written confirmation from your supervisor that it's all okay for you to go to that particular place, and the Smart Traveller summary of that country that you're planning to travel to. So that's basically how you actually apply for your elective to Monash. Yeah.
If you are planning to travel to a place that Smart Traveller doesn't directly say is okay, is that an issue?
I'm not actually sure. Hopefully we have some people who have travelled to those places.
It depends on the category, the specific category. So NMED has very clear guidelines about which categories you can and can't go to. A friend of mine's doing some work in, I think, Uganda, which is not one of those categories, and he had to take it all the way to one of the pro-vice champs or something to get it approved. So if it's in one of the, whatever, I can't remember the categories, D or 4, whatever category it is, then it can be quite difficult. But if you've got your heart on it, then it's possible. That's sort of the answer. They do make it clear what level that is on Smart Traveller. I don't remember exactly.
Essentially, if it's not green, I think as well, you score an interview with Chris Wright. Which
Pretty chill about it though.
Yeah.
He really just calls you up and says, if you ever have any problems, just come straight home, we'll organise something else.
Sorry, so if you're organising an overseas elective, you won't have it organised by the time Monash electives close. You'll just not apply for it. And you'll just have a blank rotation and you'll have to put in the application. So if my rotation 6 is my elective, I won't have it confirmed till July.
Okay.
Well, you have to have it. Well, you should have it confirmed before July. But in rotations,
Confirmed by the union, yes.
yeah. I think for rotation 2 to 6, it opened around March or February. I think around February. So rotation 2 to 6 actually opens sort of around February or so. So yeah, but you're right. It'll be blank. When you get your placement, it'll be blank, and then you can just finalise that once you submit that.
If you run into trouble, they will try and get your like a Monash elective, like if it all falls through.
All clear so far? Any other questions? Okay. So in terms of I thought I'd put this in there. You guys probably have already gotten emails about this, but there is a chance to go overseas in your specialty rotations as well. If, for example, your elective is at a time that you can't travel overseas, or is that, or you want to go overseas twice. So we got off there. You'll get emails about this, but there's opportunities to go to King's College in London, the University in Berlin that I can't pronounce, or the National University of Singapore, and also Monash University Malaysia. So those options are available as well during your specialty rotations. But you'll get emails about that. So in terms of overseas electives, where do you start? I guess, how do you apply? Where do you start? I remember when I was in your sort of last year, I was thinking, all I know is that my elective is in rotation 6 and I want to do it somewhere that's not in Melbourne. And it can be really overwhelming to think, where do I start looking? How do I go about applying for this? I guess you can kind of think about it in 2 ways. Firstly, think about, where do I want to travel to? So you can pick a country, or pick a region of the world, or you can think, oh, what do I really want to do? What specialty do I like? And then you can kind of Google what are the top hospitals in that specialty, and then sort of go from there, is another way of doing it. There are lots of guides that are available. The TeamMED guide, that is a really valuable resource as well, and a few other resources as well that can sort of help sort of guide where to look. But I guess ultimately it just, for me, it was just a lot of Googling and lots of sending random emails and lots of Googling. So I've applied to go to London Chelsea Westminster Hospital to do paediatrics. And again, the way that I kind of just stumbled into my rotation was by again, just Googling medical student elective London, and then sort of just found a whole list of different universities that offered medical student electives. Also, I thought I'm kind of interested in peds. I kind of want to go to an English-speaking country. So I found that there was a sick kids hospital in Toronto. So I emailed them. They said, oh, we only do 4-week electives. So I thought, well, that's not a good idea. And then I emailed Great Ormond Street in London, which is a famous peds hospital. And they emailed me back and said, fill out this application form. And I did. And then they were going to, you put your preferences, like which sort of peds did I want to do, or which specialty do I want to do. And then they were going to allocate me a supervisor. And then it was going to be done that way. So I did that, and I didn't hear back for a while. So I kind of thought I'll try my luck with other hospitals as well. So what I would say is if you don't hear back from someone, just keep emailing around to lots of different hospitals. No one's going to know that you've emailed this hospital and you haven't emailed that hospital. So just literally send out lots and lots and lots of emails. You can't go wrong. So then I ended up emailing Imperial College, so going through the university. So you can Google by hospital or you can Google by university. So that came up as one of the universities that offers medical electives in the UK, and they're attached to lots of different hospitals. So when I emailed them, they said, okay, great, we're happy to take you, or we're happy to take you if you can find a supervisor who's happy to take you. So they wanted me to choose my own supervisor and to contact the supervisor directly. So I thought, okay, so then they did email like a list of like a link to where I can find the doctors who work at those hospitals. So it's really overwhelming because you get this link and there's like a list of like so many doctors under like all of the different specialties. And I was kind of like, well, who do I choose? Like who do I choose? So I literally was just Googling all these names to like see if you had a kind face that looked like they would take me on their elective as an elective. So one of the doctors that I came up, I Googled, I'm interested in pediatric neonatology, and I Googled his particular name, and this is what came up. So I thought, I won't be choosing him, out of my league, definitely. So, but I was really lucky that one of the doctors that I emailed replied like the next day. She was lovely and said, definitely happy to have you. I actually have a student from your year level from Monash University who's emailed me to come on the elective at the same time as you, and it's fine to have both of you at the same time. So it was actually a really small world because I know him well, and we were like, what are the chances of that we'd both chosen the same supervisor? So choosing a supervisor was surprisingly easy. I was actually quite nervous when I was emailing her, thinking, why would she even respond to me? But she responded like the next day, and it was really, really, really good. So after I had my supervisor, I had to go through the full application process. So because I went through a university, I guess they were kind of a bit more stringent in terms of what sort of things I needed. So I should have said this at the beginning, but all hospitals will be completely different in terms of how to apply to them and what requirements they need and what documents they need. And some hospitals are really easy. You just find the supervisor and that's it. Other hospitals, and if you go through the university especially, have a bit more of a stringent sort of process. So this is just talking from my experience. But I'm sure if you had everyone who did their elective, everyone's elective process would be different. But this is just an example. So I needed a reference. I got my GP supervisor to be my reference for me, to be my referee. You needed to like have it on a letterhead or something. You needed this thing, which was an official transcript from the university listing the course and examinations and like your course load and all of that kind of stuff. Basically, what you need to know is mbbsstudentservices@monash.edu is the email that you need to email. So if your hospital needs this official transcript from your university, where to find it is email MBBS Student Services, say, hi, I'm going on my elective, this rotation at this hospital for these dates. I need a letter from the university to whatever. And they'll send you a letter in the post and they'll email you a letter. So it was really efficient, really good. So CV, I had to send my passport photo, police check. fill out an application form and immunisation status that I had to like get signed by a GP. And I had to send all of these things via post to the UK. The other thing that is interesting, or that I should mention, is that there was a fee associated with my application. So it's something to keep in mind. Not all hospitals have fees. You know, that can be something that you kind of think about when you're applying to an elective. They call it an application fee. So I remember when I first came across that, because it's kind of like up there right at the beginning, you know, application fee of such and such. So at Chelsea Westminster, the application fee was £200 British. So it's quite a significant amount if you convert that to Australian dollars. And Great Ormond Street was £400 British. So that was, you know, so they can be quite hefty. But not all hospitals have that fee. I'm just, again, drawing on my experience. In fact, I think most hospitals and most electives don't have a fee, but it's kind of just some of them do, and that's just kind of the way it happens. Especially if you apply through the university, I think there's more of a chance that there will be a fee associated, because just to cover sort of application process and things. Some people just apply directly to or just contact the consultant directly, and they're happy to just take you without going through the university. My particular consultant asked me to go through the university, and I guess for me, I kind of wanted to do that just in case, you know, just to have a contact with the university, just to sort of streamline things a bit more. But often if you just contact the consultant directly, they're happy to just take you, and you can avoid all of this. But this is like the really long, convoluted process. So I thought I would just mention about the fee. Oh yeah, so the fee. So you pay the fee right at the end after you've done the application. So it's not like you have to pay it up front and then you're not sure if they're going to take you or not. It's like you've been accepted, you've done the whole application, and then you pay the fee. So it's not like trying to deter you from applying. You also might have to get a student visa. So I think some hospitals will require you to get a student, apply for a student visa. I think the UK, to the UK, for example, not all hospitals or supervisors will require that you have that, but some do. So that's something to keep in mind. And there's a fee associated with the visa as well. And I think you apply for it with it 3 months before you travel or something like that. So just something to keep in mind. But again, it's very variable between all different hospitals. And I'm sure somebody who's already gone to London is going to be talking, so he'll be able to clarify this a lot more, because I still haven't been. So I guess in summary, the first thing you need to do is work out where you want to do your elective and what elective you want to do. And to be honest, I think that's the hardest part of the whole process, working out where you want to go. It can be really overwhelming, and I'm sure tonight, once you have a listen to all the different speakers, they'll be able to hopefully guide your decision, and hopefully something will spark some interest in you. The other thing I would say is start early. There's no harm in starting early, but there is harm in starting too late. So if you do start really early and you find that the application for that particular hospital hasn't even opened yet, then that's fine. Just write it down in your diary when it does open and then apply. But, just start as early as you can, I would say. You just get it out of the way, especially in fourth year, because once you get towards the end of the year, you get really overwhelmed with so many other things, and it's the last thing you want to be thinking about. And often when you're emailing people, they don't reply straight away, and it can just be a really long, tedious process of to and fro. So start early. And don't be afraid to send lots of emails to spam, like all the hospitals in whichever country you want to go to, because it should be, just send lots of emails, because hopefully you're just increasing your chances that someone will reply to you, because lots of people won't reply to you. So that's pretty much all I had to say. So are there any questions at all? Does that all make sense? Was that? Yeah.
You mentioned before that you found a 4-week rotation, but you said it wasn't a good idea. That's a 4-week rotation.
Yeah, so no, we have to do a full 6 weeks at one place. Yeah, so that is another factor.
Would it be possible to do like a 4 and a 2 at one hospital, or you can't do that?
You have to be under the one supervisor. So I guess it depends if they offer 4-week placements and 2-week placements, maybe they'd be open to you just saying, look, can you just make it 6? Otherwise, if it's the one department and the one supervisor, it's essentially a 6-week rotation. So as long as they sign your form with the dates, then it should be fine. When I have stuff to say about needing 6 weeks of stuff under the one supervisor, we'll get to that.
Okay, thank you. Oh, one more question. Sorry.
If you find your own supervisor, do they need to have any requirements? Like, do they need to be Australian accredited or anything?
Is in Australia, like an overseas supervisor.
And is the process if you want to go somewhere else in Australia the same as like going overseas?
I think so.
It isn't Monash, but is within Australia?
I think.
Yeah. And there's fees associated as well when you apply to universities. But if you just do it yourself, it's
Oh, I don't have a question. You have to go to a hospital. Or can you go to a clinic somewhere?
You can go to a clinic. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, so from my reading, in preparation for tonight, you can go to a clinic or any sort of health service that you have a doctor supervisor for. And also I had a friend who went to Tonga who did 2 weeks on one island and 4 weeks on another island, so I'm sure it's possible. So our next speaker is Eddie. He's a current intern at the Royal Melbourne and is going to be talking to us about his trip to Africa.
Hey guys, I've got a very simple message for you tonight, which is that this is a very unique opportunity. You have 6 weeks, you can go anywhere in the world to do anything you like. If you take up a Monash elective, I would consider that a failure at you to have pushed yourself outside your comfort zone. So I know that people have a great time doing Monash electives, and if that's the only thing you can, for whatever personal circumstance do, then that's fine. But this is a really unique opportunity, and I really would encourage you to leave your comfort zone, as you'll hear I did in a few different ways. So I went to Moshi in Tanzania, right next to Kilimanjaro, to Kilimanjaro Christian Medical Centre, and got a few things I wanted to share with you about that, if I can. So, for me, the decision-making process was that I thought, okay, I either want to go somewhere that's the world's best in whatever area it is, that I couldn't do in Melbourne, or somewhere that has a completely different medical system or a completely different experience to Melbourne. That was my sort of decision-making framework. And I did my BMed Sci in the UK, so I didn't want to go back to the UK. And I sort of started looking at my options, and I decided that I wanted to go for the unique experience. I wasn't, I had a friend who did neurosurgery in London and told me about the really fascinating neurosurgical techniques they use. I had a friend who did hand surgery at the Children's and, help reconstruct, week-old kids' hands, and they were both their passions. But for me, I wanted something that I couldn't get any other time or anywhere else that would be unique. Since I've written the slides, I've thought about these next 2 bits. And the first thing is that it's ironic that I've written English/German/French speaking, given that Tanzania is Swahili speaking. But all the doctors in Tanzania speak English because Swahili is not really complex enough to do medical education in. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is that it's really about going somewhere that has enough English or whatever languages you speak literacy that you can get by and be safe and communicate, rather than that you have to be able to talk to every patient. Equally, I had friends who went to Monash, Malaysia and found it a disaster, depending on what rotations they did, because they couldn't communicate with anyone. So do be careful about the communication thing. Safety is, I think, really important, especially if you're female. I felt safe the entire time in Tanzania. I had a few friends who got mugged after night shifts and things, like at 3 a.m, carrying their phones and things. So obvious, anywhere you go, you're taking a risk. But for me, Tanzania felt really, really safe. And the other criterion I used was sort of, I wanted to go somewhere that was ethical. So I was very happy going to Tanzania because I didn't think at no point in my planning or the process itself did I think I was going to help Tanzania. I was going to Tanzania as a learning experience for me, Sure, there'd be some, hopefully some trade-offs as a result of that positive, but that's no different to me to going to London. It happened during Tasmania medical students' holidays, apart from some of the ones who'd failed their exams, who were back, so I wasn't really taking learning opportunities from a local student, so I sort of did my best to think about it in as ethical way as I thought, and for me, I felt it was ethical because I wasn't going there with the goal of helping Tanzania. So I wasn't sort of deluded in that regard. So that sort of left me with, I guess, 4 broad options. Somewhere in Africa, and a lot of that's limited by safety, especially given Ebola, which is sort of growing less of a concern. But India, Southeast Asia, I had some friends who've had an amazing time in Papua New Guinea, particularly, or the Northern Territory. And it happened that 2 years earlier, at a conference, I'd run a workshop, and Godfrey had come to the workshop, who was then a medical student, now an intern in Tanzania. And so I thought, Godfrey seemed like a cheerful chap, and I will try reaching out to him, see if he thinks it'd be a good idea to go to Tanzania. So Tanzania, in case you don't know, is on the east coast of Africa and has about 50 million people. Now in Australia we have about 24 million people, and you can think of the number of tertiary hospitals we have, everything from Geelong to Bendigo to obviously Monash and things. How many? I want to do a show of hands. Put your hand up if you think Tanzania has more than 50 tertiary hospitals. Okay, we're going. Oh, okay, Rob. Well played, Rob. Put your hand up now if you think Tanzania has more than 40 tertiary hospitals. No one's game. More than 30 tertiary hospitals for 50 million people. Okay, more than 20 tertiary hospitals. More than 10 tertiary hospitals. More than 5. Tanzania has 4 tertiary hospitals for 50 million people. And it turns out that KCMC in Moshi is one of those 4. Now, as I said, it was right next to, so Arusha's the nearest bigger town, and Moshi's sort of nestled right under that little green symbol here. I don't know if you can see where my mouse cursor is, but that's where Moshi is, right in the northeast of Tanzania. And I wrote to Godfrey and he said, yeah, you should come here. It's a great place. You'll notice it's not perfect, but really good culture. There's plenty of English speaking. You'll get to see lots of patients. Come along. So I applied. I thought, oh, great, I'm going to Africa. There won't be any competition. It won't be like London. That was not at all correct. There was a big, rigorous application process, but fortunately I got through. It was, Mariam's described sort of most of the bits of it to you, but it was a bit of a pain getting all the documents together, but well worth it given how awesome my elective ended up being. I guess what about the medical side of things made it so special? The first thing was the mixture of Western trained and Tanzanian trained doctors, both all the way from sort of, as I mentioned, there were some medical students there doing sort of practice for their SUPs, all the way through to consultants. There was a mixture of Western trained and local doctors. We'd start every morning in this meeting. As you can see, we still use old-fashioned X-ray films, and there was basically, you might have been to a morbidity and mortality meeting. We had that every day because there were so many deaths that we had usually 1 or 2 deaths, sometimes up to 5 or 6 every day to discuss. Now, the people who were responsible for managing basically acute care was largely the interns. So if someone was deteriorating, MET calls don't exist. It's basically the interns that manage the patient. So I guess seeing that made me feel a lot more reassured about coming to be an intern at home, how much support that I would have here. But that process and seeing interns have to basically manage the hospital was a pretty transformative experience to see. So there were huge numbers of inpatients. As I said, this is one of Tanzania's 4 tertiary hospitals. About 12 patients per room with very limited privacy, with most of the beds were broken, most of the beds had been donated from various places. And sort of just an incredible mix of cases, as I'll talk about in a bit. There were huge numbers of outpatient clinics. Tanzania doesn't really have primary care or general practice as a concept. There are sort of smaller community hospitals, but they don't really have GP. So we managed everything from hypertension and diabetes and asthma through to, you know, lymphoma and various oncology things, through to HIV, TB, everything like that at an outpatient level, as well as what I'll talk about in terms of inpatient. Another sort of really significant point for me was that despite the fact that this is a government-funded hospital that also has significant charitable support and significant funding from partner universities, I think Duke University gave it something like $20 million, the patients still have to pay for their admissions, they have to pay for all their investigations, and they have to pay for drugs. And so, you know, we send someone off for a CT scan because they've got a bit of tummy pain, but if that means that your whole family doesn't get to eat for 2 weeks, then suddenly the decision around really going to change your management, because then this family can't eat for 2 weeks, then it's a bit of a different decision. And so I guess seeing those decisions play out was also pretty transformative for me to see, in addition to the fact that you only have sort of a very limited repertoire of drugs you had. So you then also learn to manage things clinically with a much more limited repertoire of drugs. This is the view from my walk to the hospital every day from where I live. That's Mount Kilimanjaro in its 5,800 meters of glory. So I also wanted to talk a bit about, you know, why would I go and do an internal medicine rotation when you can do Gen Med at the Alfred or Gen Med at Monash as part of, you know, you have to do a medical rotation. Does anyone know what that is? I don't know if the lighting's very good. Any volunteers? Any ID or oncology nuts? Gives you a bit of a hint. No? Yeah, it's a Kaposi sarcoma, which are incredibly rare here, other than in HIV patients. But are common, well, much more common both in young African males and in severely HIV-infected patients. And they're sort of a herpes-mediated, usually co-infection that as I said, have a very different. There's also just, I think, about a 20-second interlude if it loads. We'll see if it does. Oh, I need to drag. It's all right. Just to give you a clinical taste that there are things out there that you might not have seen in Australia. 6 seconds, there you go. So watch the reflex that she has when he presses on her lips. That's called the snout reflex. And it's a primitive reflex that people who've had HIV for a long time and have sort of neurological involvement of their HIV, they basically have frontal atrophy, and that takes them back to showing some of their primitive reflexes, like the snout reflex. Another one's the frontotemporal, palmomental reflex. So I saw a huge number of HIV patients with all sorts of associated syndromes that I'd never heard of or never seen before. Huge number of TB patients who you might see in negative pressure rooms if they're here, but are just out on the ward in Tanzania. Quite a number of schistosomiasis. So now my hepatobiliary history includes if you ever worked in rice fields, because that's sort of one of the primary risk factors there. And I felt more livers and spleens in the 6 weeks in Tanzania than I had sort of cumulatively in my entire career. You know, I now actually know how to characterize what different spleens feel like, whereas sort of in med school here, you sort of feel one occasionally unless you do a hematology rotation. Crazy cardiology, largely as a result of rheumatic heart disease. Weird zoonoses like brucellosis, which often comes from unpasteurized milk or uncooked meat. There wasn't much malaria where I was in Moshi because it was so high altitude, so the temperatures were lower, so fewer mosquitoes. I did still sleep under a bed net and take my malaria prophylaxis, but didn't see much of it at the hospital. As well as, and I wanted to sort of emphasize this because the Gen Med round here is like 90-year-olds who've had knock fractures and you know, back pain and a bit of cellulitis. But a Gen Med round or an internal medicine round in Tanzania would be severe stroke, lymphoma, you know, TB, HIV, liver cirrhosis, huge deep vein thromboses, hepatocellular cancers. I felt all sorts of masses that you would never want to feel on anyone. And you see it all in one ward round. And to me, that was pretty incredible, both seeing the physicians manage this sort of huge diversity of things, but also to experience that and sort of have my knowledge tested in all these really severe diseases.
Anyone want to have a guess at what that is? Close. It's unless it's a synonym. It's an amoebic cyst on the liver. Which the reason I put that in there is because I watched the physician diagnose this on clinical exam before he ordered the ultrasound, which then showed this, which was the exquisitely tender liver and liver mass that he felt. He said he turned around and he said to the whole ward, and he said, "Wait, this is not a hepatocellular carcinoma; it's an abscess." And then he ordered the ultrasound, and magically it was. And I was like, "What crazy magic is this?" But it sort of was refreshing in how much he focused on the clinical diagnostics. As I said, because investigations are so hard and so expensive, watching some of the clinical stuff they did was really incredible. I took a long weekend on safari. This is a leopard meets a giraffe, which was quite an interesting encounter. Baby 2 or 3 week old hippo, lion just resting by the side of the road. I took another long weekend hiking in the southwest of Tanzania, which involved about 30 hours on a train. And a hike up to a volcanic lake. We didn't see a single other white person the entire day, which was I think refreshing in itself. Caves and waterfalls down near Malawi in the southwest, and also travelling on motorbikes, which is something I still haven't admitted to my neurologist mother. And I wanted to add other things like this is the Tanzanian delicacy known as chipsi mayai, which means chips and egg. So it's literally a chips omelette. Not the most nutritious thing you've ever tried, but the Tanzanians love it. And this is stony tangawizi, which is their ginger. Tangawizi means ginger in Swahili, and that's their sort of local ginger drink. Every bus stop, everyone from that local community would shove all their local produce. So like one stop it might be onions. So everyone shoves onions in the window. They force the windows open. Onions for sale. It's like, oh, I'll get some onions. Next stop might be tomatoes. This stop was clearly popcorn and whatever these nuts are. But anyway, so I just wanted to sort of reinforce my initial message, which was get outside your comfort zone, both for your medicine and for your personal growth. Is an amazing opportunity. You're wasting it if you do it in Melbourne, unless you've got a really amazing elective lined up. And I'd say the same thing if you're going to anywhere, you want to make it, really make the most of the opportunity. I think what Mariam said is all largely true. Start early, do the paperwork rubbish you have to do. It's absolutely worth it because you can have an amazing experience. I hope that gave you a nice brief insight into Tanzania. Does anyone have any questions about Tanzania or Africa or anything? Yeah?
How difficult was it getting a supervisor and getting minus just like approved this elective?
It was mostly difficult logistically, like getting all the forms sent and getting Tanzania to approve it. Once they sort of, every email, as I said in reminder emails, being like, did you get this? But eventually, it was fine. I think largely because Tanzania has whatever under Smart Traveller has a reasonable classification. It's not I think it's the 3rd one, but it's the 4th one that the faculty doesn't like. So I think that helped. So it's like it feels like a lot of effort, but it's not too bad.
Did they organise accommodation, or did you have to do it?
Yeah, so I was very lucky. They have a sort of doctor's compound, is what it was called, which has 24/7. A 24/7 guard, which also helped in terms of people feeling safe. And it was probably 2 or 3 times the price of what it would have cost if I'd organised it myself. But I just decided that for sort of guaranteed safety, for convenience, because it was like a 10-minute walk from the hospital, that it was worth doing, and it was great because I lived with medical students from all over the world. There were about 8 of us. I was the only Australian, which had also a novelty to it. It was great. Did you have another question or not?
Yeah. I was going to ask, would you recommend going to a larger hospital or a smaller one for this kind of?
Depends what experience you're after. They can both be. So I probably would have got to do more if I was like a crit care person and I wanted to get really procedural hands-on experience. That sort of gets into ethical, questionable territory, I suppose, a bit more, but that's for you to decide. Then you could do heaps more. Like I could have been seeing patients alone in any of the rural hospitals, because a couple of my friends had done previous electives in rural hospitals and said they were basically acting as a fully fledged doctor. So look, if you want to do that, you can. Again, up to you. But
one of the respiratory physicians, and I got on well, so I ended up doing a bunch of respiratory clinics where it was just him and me, and we would see like 60 patients between the two of us. So, I feel a bit better about that because he saw every one of those 60 patients after I'd seen them. But I think in a big hospital, you have to be a bit more strategic about finding the opportunities, but they're definitely there. So I was very pleased with the decision, but I suppose the language thing might be more of an issue too if you went rurally, just because, whilst most of the time there weren't that many what they called Mzungus, which are white people around, it's quite a novelty when you get out of a car and there are like little kids going, Mzungu, Mzungu, like you're some animal, but I think Moshi, because it's so close to Kilimanjaro, is also quite used to that. So all these things are things to bear in mind. Like, but if you're a real trooper and you don't mind sort of being really independent, all that sort of stuff, then by all means go somewhere more rural and remote. Cool. Thanks, guys.
Our next speaker has travelled to rural Australia to an Indigenous community. This is Erin. She's a 5th year at the moment. Intern. Sorry, intern at the moment. Where are you an intern?
Monash Health.
At Monash Health. Welcome, Erin. Okay. So as the slide says, I went to Kununurra last year for my elective. So for those of you who... Is it on the laptop or on the laptop? Don't know where that is. It's in the Kimberleys, which is the top of WA, and it's in the East Kimberleys. And as you can see, it's almost in the Northern Territory. So I went to the Ord Valley Aboriginal Health Service there, and quite a few people in my year actually did this elective. There was another girl on the elective at the same time as me. So essentially it's a GP clinic, but they also run a lot of other services for the local Aboriginal community. So they have a maternal and child health nurse, they have visiting specialists, they have visiting allied health, so diabetes educators, podiatrists were the main ones that I saw. They also had health promotion programs. So there was a fetal alcohol spectrum disorder program, which I actually spent a lot of time with, and that was really interesting to learn about because it's not really something we learnt about much in medical school. There was Enough of the Puff to help people give up cigarettes, and there was social and emotional wellbeing type promotion groups and like social workers, psychologists. So I spent time with all of those. So essentially what you do on the elective, or what I did on the elective, so you can sit in with the GP, you can see your own patients, and you see, again, a lot of things that you wouldn't see in Melbourne. You see a lot of boils and skin infections, strep skin infections, scabies, and kids that have had these boils to the point where they've got ulcers essentially. A lot of otitis media and like hearing difficulties because of that, which impedes learning. A lot of type 2 diabetes and chronic kidney disease. So people on dialysis, and that's not only diabetic but because of strep infections. So post-strep GN and those types of things. People with rheumatic fever and rheumatic heart disease, and as you can imagine, a lot of psychosocial issues as well. We also did outreach visits, so to rural communities outside of the main town. So these were quite fun. If you go anywhere up the top end, people drive a long way to do very little. So you'll drive hours to see, one patient who's living in the middle of nowhere on their own. So that was quite eye-opening. You can sit in with visiting specialists. So I quite liked the paediatric side of it there, so I sat in with paediatricians, and as I said, also worked a lot with the health promotion teams, went to a school visit, went to like an alcohol rehab centre. Some of the girls that were there at the same time as me went to the workers' camp, which is essentially a type of jail, but they do kind of these, or like they have to participate in all these programs. So they went there with the health promotion groups. Okay, so some of the challenges in terms of what you're getting yourself into. There were some confronting things that happened while we were there. There was suicides with teenagers is quite common. You'll see a lot of alcohol use, both, I suppose, within the clinic, you'll hear about it, but you'll see it when you drive home and you go to the supermarket and all of that. You'll see a lot of poverty. I went to Uganda with TeamMED in my 3rd year, and it's not that dissimilar. And you'll see lists of comorbidities in 40-something year olds that you would only see in like 70, 80-year-olds in Australia, in Melbourne. So it's definitely different medicine, just as different as going to a third world country. So I think the rest of my slides are very much just showing off my photos. So there's lots of fun things to do in spare time. We went to a kangaroo haven. This is me feeding 2 joeys. This is Nicola, who I went with from Monash. We just happened to be going at the same time. We're doing a whiskey tasting or something like that, a rum, I think it was actually. This is the Bungle Bungles, which is one of the like well-known tourist attractions. It doesn't really give it justice, the photo. So, and this is it up a bit closer. This is a dry riverbed. I've never seen a dry riverbed before I went, but they're everywhere. You can go swimming. There's lots of nice kind of water holes and walks you can go to, and then there's these big water holes that you wouldn't even imagine were there when you look around and all you see is dry desert, essentially. If you're going swimming, make sure it's somewhere where the locals would go, and yeah, just be smart because these do exist. This is actually a freshwater crocodile that we saw, so they're not the ones that like kill people, but it's inland, so there's not, depends where you go, but in Kununurra itself there's no saltwater crocodiles. Lake Argyle, so we went there, we went kayaking on Lake Argyle, and then we went on this boat cruise, and then at sunset we were like swimming in there, and apparently there's like 30,000 freshwater crocodiles in there, but I didn't see any. My mum wasn't very happy about that though. And they like throw like beer and like wine and stuff at you while you're swimming in the lake. So in terms of organising an elective at Ord Valley, so it's not through a university or anything. So Andrew Beveridge is one of the senior GPs at the practice, and he actually used to run the GP program at Monash. So he's originally from Melbourne, and he kind of works, I don't know, like 10 weeks or something in Kununurra, and then comes back to Melbourne for 10 weeks. So you can contact him on that email address. Accommodation is supplied as well as a 2-wheel drive car, and you just pay, I think it was like $100 kind of bond type thing, and you get that back. So essentially costs nothing if you don't damage anything. And as you can imagine though, there are a lot of places that you can't get with a 2-wheel drive, so try and make friends with people with 4-wheel drives, which most people have. And Andrew was very generous with his time and took us to a lot of places as well. so you'll have no trouble. Kind of people want to take you and show you things, and yeah. And yeah, feel free to email me if you have any more questions about it. Or yeah. So I think that's it. It's short and sweet. Any questions? I'll just say as well, I also applied through Flinders University, who organise electives at, I think it's at Royal Darwin, whatever the hospital in Darwin is, and Alice Springs. And then in the meantime, like, they hadn't replied to me, so I did this, and then I got offered both. So so that is another option as well.
Thank you very much. Oh, that's me. Oh.
So just before we break for dinner, we're just going to hear quickly from our sponsors. I also encourage you to talk to the students that, no longer students, the doctors that have presented today. Julian is also here. He's presenting after dinner, and he was at the Royal Children's Hospital. So if you're interested in talking to him, he'll be out at dinner as well. First up, we have Lani and Whitney, or just Whitney, from the BOQ Specialist.
Thank you. Hi, guys. I'll be nice and quick so you guys can get out and get some dinner, and it's been a long day as well. Does anyone not know who BOQ Specialists are? Okay, good. A couple. In that case, I'd hope most of you do. If you're in your fourth year, I'd kind of hope that you've probably heard of us already, at least the name, if not so much what we do and what we ultimately do for you guys all through your careers. But to give you a little bit of background, the company itself has been around for 25 years now. We're a private bank, but we only work with doctors and dentists. So when people hear BOQ Specialist, it's not BOQ. Don't go walking into a BOQ branch. We're a part of the BOQ network, but we're very, very separate. We're more of a private bank. So when you guys need to see us, we come out and see you. We do all your banking for you. You have a direct contact all the time, which is pretty special because generally at the major banks, to be able to have that type of service, you need to have multiple $1 million worth of lending. So it's pretty cool, we feel. The company itself was set up by a dentist originally, and our current CEO is a surgeon, so we like to think we know what we're doing. A really big part that we find with chatting to you guys is we don't actively invest in fossil fuels, and we're one of the only banks in the Australian market that does that, and it's something that we feel very strongly about. So I always like to let you guys know that, because I know it's something that a lot of you guys start looking for around now as well. And for those of you who don't know who we are, you should, or you definitely should over the next couple of years, to give you an idea on what we do for graduates and when you're going into your internship here. We're the primary bank for over 50% of interns in Victoria and Tasmania. So there is reasons for that. A lot of it is to do with us and my fabulous team, with Lani sitting over there. But a lot of it is also to do with the products that we can offer you guys, not only now, but all the way through to when you're in the hospital system, and then you're choosing your specialisation, and then when you're out and you're wanting to set up rooms or buy into a practice or something like that. What we do for you guys now, and what we can help you with, of course, being here this evening, is funding for your elective. What we do in that space is very, very unique in the market, because we can actually give you guys a credit card, which no one else can really do. Of course, the advantage of running and paying for your elective through a credit card is that you can accumulate a heap of either Qantas or Velocity points, which if you don't collect them now, I promise you'll be pretty keen on them in a couple of years' time, because they're pretty great with even just getting flights back and forth to Sydney or Brisbane or anything like that. And of course, free travel insurance. So if you're going overseas or anything like that, it's all included in the card, which means that you don't have to pay for it separately. The way that we set it up for a lot of you guys is there's actually a couple of products that we can team together, and we can go through them with you individually because it depends on your personal situation. But what I do a lot for people when they're funding their elective is we set up the credit card so that you can book your flights, all of that kind of thing on the card. Then we have our transactional account, and what we can link to that is an overdraft facility. The way an overdraft facility works is you can draw up as much as you need, pay back as much as you like, as often as you like, which means that you're not paying interest on the full amount the whole time that you have it, because if you get some money in and you pay it off, then you're not paying interest on that amount that you've paid off anymore, which is really unique as well. The other advantage of the overdraft facility is that you don't actually have to start paying the interest back on that one until you're 6 months into working. So once you're in your internship here, you're working, you've got some cash flow coming in, that's when you have to start making interest repayments on that. The principal you can pay back whenever you feel like it. We're not really fussed about that. You can pay it back as quickly as you like. You can pay it back in 5 years' time. Either way is fine. Now, the big advantage is, of course, you pay for everything on the credit card and then you pay it off using the overdraft. You never want to have anything outstanding on a credit card. Please don't do that. It is the most expensive type of debt that you can possibly have, which is why we set it up that way for you, so that you get the benefits of a credit card, but you're also paying it off and not paying 20% interest. We can walk through that individually. That's fine. In addition to that, so I'm assuming that most of you probably bank with the major banks. Come and speak to us about that, because I can pretty much guarantee you that you're not getting what you should be getting. The major banks typically pay on a transactional account 0.001% on your money, because they don't have to pay you anymore. You've been with them since you were 5 years old and you've never really looked at changing, so why would they give you anything? There's a lot of other options out there that actually pay you interest on your money, so just something to think about. Again, we can talk you through that, so that's all good. Lucky last, we've actually got a electives grant that we're working on at the moment that will come out very soon, which would be really valuable for you guys. But it's actually not just for your electives. A lot of it's around if you want to go overseas and do some volunteer work, because we spoke to quite a lot of students who said that they were wanting to do overseas volunteer work that wasn't necessarily through the program that we're speaking about tonight. So when that's launched, we've got your details out there for those of you who have entered the competition. We can let you all know. As well, if you haven't entered the competition for the $100 Visa gift card, pop your details in the box. We'll draw it before we leave. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Elise from DPM.
Hi guys, I'll make this quick because I know you're probably all hungry. My name's Elise, and Anthony and myself are from DPM. For those of you who don't know who we are a financial services firm that specialises in offering advice to medical professionals, and we have a range of financial services. Come speak to us in the break about our DPM student membership, which is a free student membership. It gives you access to unlimited financial advice that you'll need throughout your years of study. Also free tax returns, access to events that we hold throughout the year, also access to the ProMed student loan, and also access to our elective grant, whereby we award one Monash student each year $1,000 and a camera to help them with their elective. So come speak to us in the break. Thank you.
Sorry, I forgot to put up your logo, but they're out on the right-hand side of the foyer. And last up, we have Tamar from MIPS.
Okay, just to see if you guys were listening, Eddie said something before that was very profound, that there are 50 million people in Tanzania and only 4 hospitals. Is it just me, or is anybody else sensing a business opportunity? Okay, so I'm with MIPS, and we have a lot of our members here. If you don't know about MIPS, we provide professional indemnity insurance. And what that simply is, people know about insurance for the cars to protect your cars, home insurance to protect your home, indemnity insurance is to protect your career. I'm just going to be very to the point. With our indemnity insurance, membership is free. Now you guys are going on electives. We have elective cover that comes with your membership, and that is free as well. If you're looking to go overseas, we do have travel insurance, and that also comes with your membership. So just come and see me outside to talk about your elective cover, which I'm sure you guys need, and we'll have a nice chat. All right, thank you.
All right, guys, we have dinner in the foyer. We'll reconvene in about 15 to 20 minutes. Also, Kate from Work the World and her team are here. She went to Peru last year, and Work the World also provide trips to Sri Lanka and other interesting locations. So have a chat to them in the foyer.
I have no clue. Yeah. My God, it's just really good for my life.
Do it.
So he does know you.
Right, let's see if I can figure this out.
What's your last name, Katie?
Blunt.
Blunt. Have we chatted via email? Maybe you were chatting to Ollie previously. I
haven't
don't know.
chatted to
Oh, you
anyone,
haven't talked to us.
no.
Okay.
Not yet. I've just been Googling frantically.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Just
in here?
Yeah, this one, please. So you'll go first. Where are my things gone?
There it is.
There you go.
Yeah, it's the top one. Yeah, I'll because ours is like such an open presentation where, because sometimes we'll show up and there'll be a student lined up to come and they don't show up or they get nervous or whatever.
Yeah.
So we try and just keep it open and then just breeze through stuff we don't need to really go in depth on. But you're going to be in here.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe if you think I'm going on too long or something, just give me.
Yeah. No. Well, Chloe just said you were going to talk for about 20 minutes. So that, like, however you want to split that, that's fine. There we go. That's all sorted.
Awesome.
And then we'll just swap to.
Piece of cake.
Yeah. Oh, do you want me to? Yeah, download it. That's a better idea.
Maybe just drag and drop it on the desktop or something. Look at that desktop. Is this your computer, mate? What are you up to?
I just
You
go
just send
through
it to
Find. I know
IT.
it's terrible. Don't.
No, I do the same thing.
And I need to get a new computer as well. This is just like it's slowly dying on me. All right, that
I
works.
got 2 new laptops, and then I gave them both to those guys, like one to Ollie and one to Aisha. I've still got the old crappy one.
I have to close this. Yeah, I'm thinking I might need to get a loan just to. Oh, where did it go? Well, if I had a cleaner desktop.
You have to search for it. Oh no, did it download? No, I don't think it did because it was still open.
Can we just leave it in there? Is that all right?
You can do.
We can put it back in just before we come back in. If you prefer that. Yeah. All right. We know it works though. That's the main thing.
So what else? We've got a couple more speakers tonight.
Yeah, and then we're done.
Whoa.
Do you want us to read some of these for any potential students that may have made it tonight? Or most of them is Oh, yeah. I was in there. Yeah, but otherwise we'll just pay them up.
Yeah, yeah.
Good, thanks for getting the pizza. Was it all good? All sorted? Yeah. I know, the desktop's an embarrassment. I really just want a new laptop, so I'm putting off cleaning it till it dies.
It's definitely like psycho killer.
And they're all screenshots as well.
Yeah, all just
I
goes
keep
in the
the
bin.
public space clean. Okay. Well, now it's not going to work on us, is it?
No, well, just took a little bit to come up. Yeah.
Oh no, I'm on 35% as well. Is there a plug? My charger.
Here we go.
Yeah, if you want to. Have you already picked your one?
No, we haven't. You can pick it if you want when they come in.
Is it open?
Yeah, I just gotta drag it onto the desktop. So
Where did it go?
there it is. So
Oh, it's already there.
should be able to check that, right?
If we can find it on the desktop though, because we're having that ever since I've plugged it in, like I've lost. Is it alright if we just open it on here?
Yeah,
and I'll just take it out. You're going first, so we can take it out.
Okay.
And then. Oh my god.
Do you have a lot of windows open?
I do. Yeah, I do. But...
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so just give me a wave. Sorry.
Draw that out. Just quickly before our next speaker, BOQ Specialist is going to draw their $100 visa prize. I'm going to draw it.
Or you pick yourself out, but you know.
Laura McDonald Wedding? Has she gone home? Oh, that doesn't count.
Thank you.
And now it's not going to work. We should have left it open before, huh?
It's got to be there. Oh, it's just loading it. Oh, it's because we're still trying to open it up.
Well, it opened before. Everything's frozen.
You don't want to close anything?
Well,
oh, you got like projects on the go and stuff. What's this one?
It's a printer.
Give it that.
Oh, there we go. Let's spin it up.
Is it easy to go from this to Kate's presentation?
I'll just go to Kate's presentation. You just like close this window. It's on the other.
Oh, that's just in there? Yeah, that's it.
What's your name again? James. All right, guys, we'll get going. The next presenter is the team from Work the World. So we have James and then Kate talking about the opportunities they provide.
Hey guys, is anyone else outside or you're good? All good? Cool. I'll try and keep this brief because I know you've been here all night and probably all day. Did you guys have lectures today or? Yeah, okay.
Just so you know, it's being live streamed, so if you're talking to the microphone, they'll be able to hear it better.
Yeah, cool.
Live stream.
All right. So my name's James Brown, just like the singer, but I'm not going to do any dancing tonight. I'm the development manager at Work the World, and normally I'd spend a lot of time, or we'd spend a lot of time running through all the different aspects of what we do, our service, our placements. But I'm going to try and keep it a bit top level today to not go into too much detail because we do have Kate here who went on a placement with us in Arequipa in Peru very recently. And you're probably more interested to hear from her about what her experience was and might give you a bit more direct insight. So I'm just going to make this a bit more informal, ask you a few questions here and there. So first of all, who's heard of us before? Hands up if you've heard of Work the World. Maybe half of you. Cool. So we've actually placed we've arranged just under 40 placements for medical and nursing and physio and pharmacy students from Monash in the past 2 or 3 years. So we're very familiar with the kind of academic admin processes that you guys have to go through to have your hours approved and have your placements approved. So we're very familiar with that. So I won't go into too much detail on that today. But is everyone in the same cohort here at the moment? Are you guys all in the same year level? And that's 3rd year, 4th year? 4th? Cool. So you have to do an elective plate next year, is it? Or by the end of next year? And do you have a certain window when you need to do it? Yes, okay. So hands up if you know like what sort of area you want to go into on your elective, whether it's here in Australia or overseas. Anyone interested in maybe O&G, maternity, pediatrics, emergency? Okay, so there's a bit of interest, a bit of sort of knowledge of what you want to do. So hopefully after our presentation and Kate's, you'll start to think about that a bit more in depth. Because whether you do something with us or you do something yourselves or you do something through another organisation, a lot of what we have to say will give you some more insight. So we've been placing students for over 10 years in destinations all around the world. And what we do in terms of our service is quite unique in the support side of things. So Kate will take you through it. I heard her chatting to someone about it earlier, about she just really didn't feel like she needed to organise too much. It was all taken care of. And that is essentially what we do. So from the moment you get in touch with us, have a chat to Oliver or Aisha or myself, we're the team here in Australia. We liaise with you about your interests, both clinically and travel adventure-wise. Sort of pin down what kind of experience you're looking for, and then we tailor that experience specifically for you. So we deal with every single student on an individual basis. In saying that though, we do have groups that go on placements with us, and students often pair up with other students and go together. But the backbone of what we do is the service, and it's really from that moment you get in touch through the sort of discussions with our operations team, discussions with our team here in Australia, right through to when you're in country and doing your placement, working with our program manager, our staff in destination, who are always asking you for feedback on what's going on and how your experience is. And right through to when you come home, we give you a sort of welcome back call and find out how it went. So our partnerships are the backbone of what we do. So we've been, as I said, operating for over 10 years now, and that's because we've been forming these partnerships with hospitals, clinics and communities around the world for a very long time, and these are true partnerships. So we don't just focus on what your objectives are, that's our team's focus at the early stage, but our wider organisation's focus is also what do these hospitals need to get out of a partnership. And that is we contribute finances towards them, we contribute equipment towards them, we do regular English teaching lessons for staff in the hospitals and clinics. So they benefit as well, not just from you being in country. But what it means for you is probably that last point there about structured supervision. So the relationships that we have means that you will always have someone on site who has an idea about what you're trying to achieve, your objectives while you're on your placement, how that fits in relation to your course and your studies, and how we can facilitate that and make it a really great experience for you. Essentially because you're not wasting time. So I think you've had lectures earlier on, or speakers talking about the administrative side and how much time you have and when your blocks are, is that right? Yeah. So what's your elective block? Is it 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 6 weeks? So if you're spending the time and energy and effort to organise a placement, whether it's rural Australia, city Australia, or overseas, you want to make the most of that time, right? Because you guys all have a very heavy workload during your degree. You don't get many holidays. You don't get much time to let off steam. That's what we give you. We give you that time, so that kind of reassurance and that reliance of, okay, work the world's got sorted. On the weekends, I can go and do hang gliding or skydiving or, you know, sleeping or drinking cocktails, whatever you want to do. So this is our destinations, and I'll run through them really briefly. And this is just a bit of a slideshow of, I think it's around 50% of these pictures are taken by students that have been on a placement with us over the years, and the other 50% are definitely professional photography. That one's not, for example, and I think there's one with a lion or a tiger coming up that I don't think one of our students would have got that close. But as you can see from these photos, it gives you a feel of the opportunity that you're presented in a placement. You can combine that need of your course, that clinical requirement to get more experience in a particular area, with the opportunity to go and explore and really expand your horizons, meet new people, new cultures, get absorbed into new destinations, eat a whole lot of new food. That's probably my #1 priority when I'm traveling. But also just stretch your boundaries a little bit. Clinically, it means you can focus on really new cases, new interests, new illnesses that you will not have the time or opportunity to come across here in Australia. So I'll dig into these a little bit deeper now. So I'm just going to skip through so we don't spend too much time sort of focusing on just the adventure side of things for you. As I said, the clinical placements are a massive focus of what we do. They're well structured, well supported. From the moment you have a chat to us and register for a place, our ball gets rolling in terms of arranging your placement. And that could be 6, 12 months out before you even arrive. But a couple of months before you go, on the back end, our team also reconfirms the placement with you through a clinical interest call and double checks that, okay, you told me, 6 months ago you're interested in paediatrics. Are you still interested in paediatrics, or do you want to spend time somewhere else? And that's before you even arrive. But then you also have the option, because of our relationships, to change what you're doing in country if you need to. So if you've said, I've got 2-3 weeks in the country and I want to spend 2 weeks in ONG, and then a weekend you go, oh, actually this is a bit plain, or I've seen enough cases, or whatever the story is, because we have our team on the ground, we can facilitate that and change you over to get you, the experience you're looking for. For you guys, I think the main point, and for the experience that we've had talking to students and getting feedback over the years, has been broadening that knowledge of what it means to be a medical kind of professional, and the context of that in global health and what it means here in Australia. So the hospitals and clinics you'll be going into are hugely under-resourced. And we're talking about under-resourced in terms of staff, in terms of human resources. Patient volumes will be very high, which means you get exposed to a lot of cases. But also resources, physical resources themselves. I've heard stories from students about, what's it called when you're taking blood? Cannulation? Students doing cannulation, and there's been no equipment to be able to just, hold their blood flow. So they've had to tie 2 rubber gloves together and wrap it around a patient's arm and then take blood. And that's not unusual. That's the norm in the hospital. So what this gets you thinking about is what it means to not have the resources that you do have here in Australia in hospitals and clinics and in the healthcare industry, and how you can really capitalise on that when you come back here and start practicing or start working in the healthcare industry in Australia. Couple more things on our side. What we also do is offer what's called a village health experience, where you can compare your city-based placement in a major hospital or major institute and go out into the local communities. This is a photo of one of our students in Arusha in Tanzania, who spent time a week with the Maasai tribe. getting in depth into their culture. And typically what happens on these village health experiences, you spend a week, in the first part of the day each day is at a local health outpost. So you're going from already under-resourced hospitals and clinics and departments to the most rural outpost you can think of, where you may end up being one of the most qualified staff there. Don't be surprised if that's the case. And then in the afternoons, you go and do things like milking buffaloes in Nepal, getting amongst cultural activities, traditional dancing, like it says on there. In Batangas and in the Philippines, you can go and work amongst the Guimaras communities and their fishing communities on the coastal parts of the Philippines. So lots of different experiences to really enrich your time in country. Before you go, we do a lot of tailoring of what you're looking to achieve, and we do that through our phone calls, through our emails, through our communications, but also through My Trip, which is a planner. Basically, it means you can carry on partying or working or studying or taking your partner out on dates or whatever you want to do and not have to worry about what's happening for your placement, because it's all lined up for you. The team on the ground, our staff on the ground, are crucial to our placements. This is our team in Takoradi in Ghana, where we've been working for the longest time, for over 10 years. And the staff in country, we have a chef, we have a program manager, we have assistant program manager, we have security staff, we have cleaning staff, cooking staff, and they're all there to make sure your experience is the best and you're getting the most out of your time in country. What we do is take away the stress of your arrival. So as soon as you land at the airport, our staff will meet you, take you back to the Work the World house, give you a debrief, a welcome meal, make you feel comfortable, meet the other students, get you relaxed and excited about what you're going to start the next day on the Sunday. On the Monday, they'll take you a local orientation, show you around, show you cafes and shops, restaurants, that sort of stuff, help you get a SIM card, change money. In the afternoon, they'll introduce you to your hospital staff and supervisors so you know where you're going and what you're doing from day one. Very simple, very straightforward, but just takes that stress away from you guys. This is a bit misleading. This is the only house we have with a swimming pool, so don't get fooled. But when you're in country on a placement with us, you are staying in a Work the World house. It's not a homestay. You're in there with other students and professionals from all around the world, so great networking opportunity, great way to come back at the end of a hard day and discuss what's happened, and often there's a case of someone one-upping you in terms of what you've seen and experienced. But fully catered, we do barbecue nights, language lessons, all sorts of activities to make your time really useful. So I'll just breeze through these really quick and then I'll introduce Kate. So Ghana, as I said, our first destination. We've got amazing opportunities in Ghana if you're interested in emergency medicine. The cases that go through places like Kwetasim, Efenakwante Hospital, and at one of the maternity hospitals as well, Kwetasim. Amazing emergency cases that you can get amongst. Tanzania, we've got placements in Dar es Salaam and Arusha. So again, interest in emergency medicine, have a really good think about Africa, Tanzania, and I think the other thing about the African destinations is the clinical side of birthing processes and maternity is radically different. Stories of midwives slapping women who are giving birth because they don't want them to be showing fear to their child when it's brought into the world. That's a cultural consideration and things that you might come across while you're in country. So radically different to what you'll experience here. Nepal, most students know about Nepal, so I'll skip through this pretty quickly, but we've got amazing pediatric units that we work with in both Pokhara, which is where this photo is taken, 10 minutes from our house in the north, but also in Kathmandu in the capital. Very hustle bustle kind of Asian city. Awesome placements in the major hospitals in Kathmandu as well. Sri Lanka and the Philippines, two places really close obviously to Australia, so if you're tight for time, you want to get a bit of holiday time in there as well. Maybe a few cocktails at the beach. Think about the Philippines. In Sri Lanka, we work with two major hospitals in Kandy and in Kununurra. In Kandy, it's the largest teaching hospital out of all of our placements. Around 1,500 inpatient beds and around 1,400 outpatient cases a day. So you can just imagine what kind of volume of patients and cases you'll come across. Last couple, Peru. Anyone interested in oncology? Just me? That's all right. Anyone interested in trekking in Machu Picchu in South America? Probably a few more people. There we go. Amazing hospital, Goyeneche, that we work with in Peru. So not only can you go and get amongst these interesting mining industry cases that have come about over the mining industry's impact on the waterways and the, you know, the pollution over the last 60, 70 years. You can go check Machu Picchu, you can head off to Brazil or Argentina. Amazing architecture and beautiful culture and amazing people. And last but not least, Cambodia. So we've just added Cambodia as a new destination. We're sending students there from July this year into Phnom Penh. Again, like South America, you can travel around Southeast Asia really easily. We're just finalising our hospital partnerships there in Cambodia, so really good place to consider as well. So that's enough from me for now. I'd like to get Kate up to share a bit more on her time in Arequipa. Before I do, just know that there are grants and bursaries available towards your placement, so have a look online and check those out. But also, if you want to have a chat to us individually, either after this or, you know, in the coming weeks, Ollie's got a little sign-up sheet. If you want to chuck your contact details down, we'll give you a call, give you an email, and we can chat to you. We've got some little brochures that give you a bit more coverage of our placements. You're welcome to take one, and we'll take any questions later on. So please welcome Kate to talk about her Arequipa. I'm good.
Awesome. Thank you. Cool. Hey guys. So I'm Kate. I am a final year student. I'm in Box Hill at the moment doing orthopedics, and I did my elective rotation 1. So I got home 3 weeks ago. So it's still all very fresh to me. Oh, and my pretty picture got a bit frazzled there. And I went to Arequipa in Peru with Work the World, and basically just had like the time of my life. Right. So just before we talk about exactly like what I did, I thought I'd, like everybody else obviously, help you guys decide what it is that you want to do or where you want to go. The formatting of this. Yeah, I just don't know if it's going to circle the right things. But anyway, so basically the way I went about it was I had a couple of questions for myself. The first one was, did I want to stay home or did I want to go overseas? And I wanted to go overseas because it was my only way of convincing myself not to take time off to go traveling if I did it actually as part of my course. You also have to decide whether you want to go through the stress of organising it yourself or if you want the kind of placement that's pretty much all organised for you. And given that I was going to do mine after another holiday, I just wanted to not have to worry about all of the stress of sorting that stuff out. I was really happy to have somebody else do that for me, and Work the World did that really well. You also have to think about whether you want a hands-on sort of elective or a more observational kind of experience different healthcare system elective, which for me, I wasn't really too fussed. I would have been happy with anything as long as it wasn't in Australia. You have to decide what is more important, whether you want to spend a lot of time in the hospital because you really want the clinical experience or if you're predominantly going somewhere because you think it's a cool place to go. Legitimate consideration. Do you want to go somewhere that has a different culture or speaks a different language? Whether that's one that you already know or one that you want to learn. I think that's important to consider. And then the ethical considerations. So thinking about what is in your scope of practice at home and therefore what realistically should be within your scope of practice somewhere else. And I know this is a TeamMED night, but a little plug for Ignite because I'm an Ignite girl through and through. They have really good pre-departure training related stuff, and one of the former chairs of Ignite wrote a pre-departure training booklet for actual doctors, not just medical students. So if you Google like Hamish Graham pre-departure training, he's got a really good booklet of how to go through and think about where you can go based on what you can do, and yeah, just things to consider when you're deciding, you know, where to go overseas to do your placements and stuff. So for me, I wanted to go abroad. I wanted someone else to organise it for me. I really wanted to make sure that I got some travel in, and I wanted to go somewhere that had a different culture and language, and preferably one I didn't speak yet because I like to learn new languages, and I thought this would be a good way to do it. So for me, that spelt out Work the World, and I did some research with like the Electives network and stuff like that because I'd originally also tossed up going to South Africa or something like that because I knew I wanted to do women's, and South Africa is pretty good for getting hands on things, and I've got some friends there.
But then we decided we were going to go to America for Christmas. So I thought, all right, I need to go somewhere in South America. And then I found this relatively new placement in Arequipa, and it just ticked all the boxes. So, yeah. So my actual elective was rotation 1, so just finished. And after I'd spent 6 weeks traveling in the USA and Mexico and a week in Peru before my elective started, when I did Machu Picchu and stuff like that. So this is a pretty map of Peru. Lima, as you can see, is a little drink down here. This is Cusco, which is where you're based when you go to Machu Picchu and stuff like that. And this is Puno down here where Lake Titicaca is. And Arequipa is the star down here. So it's in the south, but it's also really close to travel kind of stuff. So I'm really sorry about my photos, guys. In the original one, it was decent. I'll upload that for you or something. A little bit about Arequipa. It's Peru's second biggest city, has a population of about 860,000. It's 2,335 meters above sea level, which, just for context, is higher than Mount Kosciuszko, which is the highest mountain in Australia. So you're just, yeah, really high up the whole time. It's nicknamed the White City because lots of the buildings in the center of town are made out of the volcanic rock from the surrounding area. So it's really beautiful. The local indigenous people are Inca, pre-Inca, and Aymara from the south. And that big dormant volcano that you see in the back there is El Misti, and you get a really decent view of that every day. So when you do a Work the World placement, as James outlined, you stay in a Work the World house. And for us in Arequipa, it's all their houses they build up, they don't build out. And so it's this like 4-story house with a cool little roof chill out place, and it holds like 30 people. When I was there, which is in the down season, there weren't necessarily that many people there. Sometimes I think the lowest when I was there was 4 or 5, and the most was 14, which was a good sort of spread. 14 was fun, but so was 5, so you can't really go wrong. It's about a 20-minute walk from the hospital or a 5-minute bus ride, but you just can't be bothered taking the bus because it costs like a whole sole, which is like 30 cents or something like that. So, and it only takes 20 minutes. It's a nice walk. It's really easy because you just walk along one road. You really can't get lost. It's the road that leaves your like little, I suppose, housing compound, and you just walk along the one road. It's also only 5 minutes walk from the 2 major shopping centres in the area, so you can have your pick of those, which also means that it's only a 5-minute walk from Chili's Taco Tuesday, which, yeah, is the picture on the bottom left. And it may sound like I'm a little bit obsessed with these tacos. It's because I am, because they're fabulous, and we ate them every Tuesday for 6 weeks. Yeah, and the Work the World house itself is full of wonderful, loving staff. Everybody from Sonia in the top, what is that for you guys? Left, who is your program manager, who organises all of your placements and things like that. Basically sorting out your life to make sure that you have an amazing time, despite the fact that she's like 8 months pregnant and has a terrorising 4-year-old at home. Through to like the night manager that comes in so that there's always somebody in the house in case anything goes wrong and things like that. And he spoke very little English, but you still like could have a fabulous time despite language barrier. The head cook is Julia, but everybody just calls her mum or mama because she legit like calls you her children. She gives you hugs all the time and kisses and calls you beautiful and then cries when you leave. And that's Raoul down on the bottom left. I'm not sure exactly what like Raoul's job description is, but basically he's like your live-in buddy. So he like takes you on your city tour. He picks you up from the airport when you first get there. He's just around the house in the morning and in the afternoons because there's always somebody in the house, which is really nice. And you just give him sass all the time and he takes it really well. So that's always good. As James outlined, the house is catered. It's cleaned by this lovely lady called Marisol. There's a weekly salsa class on Thursday after barbecue. And sometimes it starts off as salsa, but then it like descends into basically whatever you want to do. So we had these 5 American guys there at one time. It used to get really rowdy. And the salsa teacher, who is like this classic Latin lady, by the end of the like dance class, we had her like chucking money at people and slapping butts. So yeah, it's good fun. And you also have the Spanish teacher who comes from the Spanish school like across the other side of town to come to the house to give you Spanish lessons on a Monday and a Tuesday, which is really nice. So Hospital Goyeneche is so different from anything that you could possibly experience here in Australia. It's a big regional public hospital, so people come from all over the south to Arequipa to come to this hospital. It's quite old, it's 105 years old, and it actually still looks like it probably did 105 years ago, in that all of the wards look like those like classic films where people have Spanish influenza and it's like 20 beds without any divisions in between and people just hang out in the ward. Yeah, I didn't put too many notes in here about the kinds of differences that there are because A, there's just too many to be able to tell you in a short time frame. Yeah, and B, it's really something that you have to experience for yourself. I guess the important things that I would sum up was that, I guess a bit like Ed described, all of the patients have to pay for everything themselves. So the thing that really stood out to me about that was, well, two bits, I suppose. The first one, when I went and saw my first hysterectomy at Goyeneche, the patient had to get her husband to go to the pharmacy to put in this script, and the script wasn't for medicine, the script was for all of the individual things that you require to perform a hysterectomy. So it had all of the gloves for all of the surgeons, it had the needles for the cannulas, it had the saline fluids, it had the lines to connect the saline fluid to the drip, it had, yeah, everything under the sun. And she's lucky that she had a husband there to be able to go to pharmacy and pick it up, because if they don't have next of kin, then the patient has to walk across the hospital to pharmacy to pick it up themselves. And they just wrapped it all up in these plastic bags, put it under her bed, and then wheeled her into the theatre with that. And then when we got to the theatre, we just picked up a mask and boots that had been sitting on the floor, because they recycle everything in Goyeneche because they just don't have enough of stuff. So yeah, we just picked up old ones that had been sitting there. And when I worked in the clinic, later on, I used the same boots, the same mask and the same hairnet for the entire week, because if you chuck it out, you don't get another one. So, which was really strange then when I came home to orthopedics in Box Hill and they just like it's going out of fashion. It was ridiculous. Yeah, the other thing was the lack of privacy, for one, the lack of isolation. So like Ed described, TB isn't isolated, so I kind of feared for my life a few times. There was one stage where I'd just taken this guy's blood, and then one of the nurses was asking him about his history, and he had TB, but it wasn't active. It was like past TB. But I instantly like recoiled and just head to the corner of the room and stuff. So the people on internal med just used to wear TB masks constantly, because you don't know who does and does not have TB, because they have BC, like they have the vaccine there, not that that's particularly useful. But they're also just really used to it being more prevalent, so they don't notify you in the same way that they do here, where you have a big sign that will say, you know, even for enteric precautions, whereas there it's all just run of the mill. So you'd be halfway through a history and then you find out that they have active TB, and you've just been like standing right next to them while they're coughing and all this kind of business. So it's a bit of a worry. Sorry. All right, potential rotations. Definitely hypothetical, because as you guys know, you have to do 6 weeks under one supervisor in the one department for your whole elective. So this is what my friend did, and definitely not what I did. I spent 6 weeks in women's health, including 1 week Spanish intensive, because I didn't speak like a word of Spanish when I got there. A week on gynae, a week on OBS, a week in cancer prevention, and 2 weeks in the small clinic on the other side of town. Basically, you have like hundreds and hundreds of options to choose from within your time that you spend in Arequipa. And Sonia, who organises it, will be super happy to make sure that not only do you get to do what you think will be interesting, but you also get to go to lots of different things if you run out of seeing stuff on a particular rotation, which is why my friend went and did a week on cancer prevention stuff. And it's got everything that you could want in terms of different specialties, besides obviously the highly specific stuff. But really, anything that you want to do, including getting a varied experience in lots of different departments, is possible. And Sonia has no trouble getting forms signed at all, because she has to translate them into Spanish for them to sign them. So she just gets it done. You don't even have to worry about that, which is really nice. Then there's the travel and activity opportunities, which was a big part of it for me. Arequipa is really close to everything. I did the Cusco stuff beforehand, with the exception of Rainbow Mountain, but everything else we just did as weekend trips or day trips from Arequipa. So that was amazing. And yeah, I'm happy to talk to you guys about those things as well at a later date. And then in Arequipa itself, there's also a whole lot of extra stuff that you can do. And the city's just really beautiful in general. And all the people at the house are really nice. And like Raul invites you to play soccer with him on a Monday night and stuff like that, which we did sometimes, which was hilarious. So that it's basically just like, even when you're in the hospital, you're having a great time because there's lots of rare, interesting, more advanced stuff to see. When you're not in the hospital, you have plenty to do in Arequipa or heaps of stuff in the surrounding area to see. And everybody at Work the World will help facilitate you getting any and all of those things done, basically. So my parting words is choose the elective that is right for you, whatever that may be, whether that's predominantly travel, predominantly hospital, whatever. Make the most then of whatever you choose, again, maximising travel and hospital opportunities. And buy your t-shirt a size up because they run kind of small. Yeah, that's my email address and you can add me on Facebook to see all of my photos. Yep. Cool.
Thank you, Work the World. We've got two more speakers quickly. Julian's next. He was at the Royal Children's Hospital for his elective.
So hi everyone, my name is Julian. I'm an intern at Austin Hospital. I feel like I wasn't here for the first few presentations. I feel like this has probably been gone through a few times. So I'll go through it quickly. Basically, there's lots of factors that you can think about when you try to choose an elective, and even when you're trying to choose rotation for fifth year. So the first factor is to confirm an interest. So this is important to me when I chose to do a rotation in pediatrics. You probably will get a couple of weeks in rotations in third year and fourth year, and you might think, oh, this is the kind of specialty that I want to do, but often it's very team dependent and very hospital dependent. So doing an elective rotation is a good opportunity to confirm whether or not you a specialty and whether or not it's what you think it will be like. Some people choose to do a specialty that they're pretty set on, and one thing that one advantage of doing that is that you'll be able to meet people who might be able to give you opportunities in research or help you later in your career. So that's I guess another factor. If you know which hospital you want to work at as an intern, you might be motivated to do a rotation in that hospital. It's not guaranteed though that you would be able to get a good referee. So I wouldn't advise you to do a rotation just based on that alone. If you're interested in certain Melbourne hospitals, you might like to do a rotation there. I was tempted to do a rotation at Austin Hospital because that's where I wanted to work this year. And I know people who did that. I obviously didn't choose to do it at Austin Hospital, but I was still able to get a job. So once again, this is not necessarily necessary to get rotation, to get an internship at certain hospitals. Something I didn't think about until pretty much the end of fifth year is that certain rotations are really hard to do after medical school, and so things like ophthalmology or dermatology or like sports medicine or forensic medicine are appealing in that regard, especially if you want to do something like general practice. To travel, that's already been talked about. This has been talked about as well. There's certain specialty rotations that I think are really good for internship. They might not seem super appealing now, but doing a rotation in radiology I think can be really helpful. In palliative care it can be really helpful, and like endocrinology, diabetes, cardiology. You learn lots of skills that will be helpful for internship. And kind of this is already mentioned probably, but actually trying to help in a country that's maybe a developing world. So, and then culture as well. So I think Indigenous health is something that is quite popular for fifth years to do electively. So I think if you choose one or two or three of those factors that are most important to you, and then use those to guide your choice, you often can come up with one or two good rotations, and then maybe using a pros and cons list to distinguish between them. So I did my rotation at Royal Children's Hospital, which, if any of you have been there, it's a really nice hospital. It's extremely well equipped, and everyone there is really friendly and just has a really nice feel. And I think would be a really lovely place to work. It's also not too far from the city, and it's very easy to get to by public transport. But I'm not sure if you'd be able to drive there. I don't know where you would park. You might have to pay for parking. I did my elective in the ICU department, so pediatric ICU, which is separate to NICU, which is neonatal ICU, which is more for babies or children less than 1 month old. You get very, very sick children from all over Victoria, as well as some parts of South Australia and New South Wales. And it's also the trauma centre for paediatrics in Victoria. So there are 4 main components, 2 main wards, and then an outreach and PIPA. PIPA is a service which retrieves children from rural areas. So I spent most of my time on the general ward, but the cardiac ward is a place where most of the children with cardiac or congenital heart abnormalities live and are taken care of, and children post-cardiac surgery. So I guess it was good for listening for murmurs and telling the difference between cyanotic and acyanotic babies. And does anyone know if this is a cyanotic or acyanotic baby? Yeah, so it's like bluish around the lips. And I remember when I was there on the first day, I said, "Oh, acyanotic." But when you see it once, you see it in real life, then it clicks and it stays with you. And those things aren't things that you'll see in many other areas. Maybe at Monash you might see it, but probably be very, very otherwise. And there's quite interesting things that happen. There's surgery that happens on the wards and ECMO. It's like artificial lungs and heart. So in the same way that a dialysis is like an artificial kidney, this is something that pumps the blood and oxygenates it. And then on the general ward, where I spent most of my time, where you get a good mix of medical and surgical cases, lots of basic things which I'm sure you'll already be quite familiar with, but then some rare things like lots of endocrine and metabolic and neurological disorders. And there's always new cases each day. There's about 18 beds or so on the general ward. Outreach is it's basically like a part of ICU that goes to MET calls and goes to see patients who have been discharged from ICU. And for me, it was a good opportunity to see patients myself because they weren't as sick as those in ICU. PIPA is that retrieval service. I didn't go on any of these. I'm not sure if it would be possible to go on these because there needs to be enough room, obviously, for the patient, probably the patient's parent. So, yeah, I'm not sure if this is actually possible. The things that I liked about the rotation was that you get a really good exposure to a broad variety of cases and specialties. I wasn't really sure exactly of a particular area that I wanted to do it in, and I thought that ICU was good in that you get lots of general cases and all the specialties come to ICU to consult. So you learn a lot about lots of different things, and it's a very high caliber of medicine that's practiced there. I think probably some of the best doctors that I've worked under were on that rotation. It's probably the most interesting rotation that I've had as a medical student. There are lots of procedures that are done in ICU, like drain tubes being put in and intubation and extubation. And I did get to help the couple. I got to do a lumbar puncture and I got to do a bronchoalveolar lavage. But that was the exception to the case. So the cons were that most of the time it was observatory. Because it's so specialised and because the patients are so sick, it's pretty difficult to, I guess, play a role in the team. And the most junior reg on the team when I was there was someone who was on their last year of ED training. So there's a really big gap between you and that person, which is different to when you're working with an intern. And yeah, as an intern, you won't see heaps of kids. At the Austin, I don't see any kids. So it's not super helpful for internship. And it's pretty confronting. You'll see, if you do this rotation, you see, lots of children who were previously well who either die or have irreversible morbidity. And I saw on my first day there was a child who was killed by the ex-boyfriend of a mum there. So I think emotionally it was difficult. So that's something to think about if you're considering doing this kind of rotation. To apply, you just email that email address with the application. It says that you can only do 4 weeks, but if you ask, I think they're happy for you to do 6 weeks. It's pretty simple, but it takes a long time for them to get back to you, and that's normal. That was the case for me and for the year after me. And something else to consider, it's quite costly. I can't remember the exact prices, but it might be like $200 a week. Yeah. And that's it. Does anyone have any questions at all?
Thanks so much for that, Julian. Next up, we have Scott talking about his London elective.
Hey guys. So I went to London for my elective. I was rotation 5, and I think we had 1 day of rain the entire time I was there. It was the most beautiful time Europe's ever seen. I won't spend much time talking about how great London was because it's London and everyone knows how great London is. I travelled a lot. I travelled every single weekend to somewhere in Europe. I would leave on Thursday to, say, Venice, sit there, drink wine over the weekend. I'd come back on Tuesday and I'd be too tired to go on Wednesday because I was going somewhere again on Thursday. My consultant was super keen with that, but he was insulted that I spent only 2 days in Venice, and so he told me to take an extra week off and spend 3 days in Venice. Gave me a good reference. People know what elective students tend to be there for. You don't go to, these beachy towns to sit in a hospital ward and see outpatients. You get to do that as an intern a lot. I found, everyone, you should choose what you want to do. You should make decisions. I would consider deciding early whether you want to travel or do serious electives, and make it clear to your consultant or your supervisor early on what your agenda is, because if you're honest with them, they get it. We've flown halfway across the world. We don't want to spend time in the theatre watching colonoscopies, I did Peds Gastro, which was a good rotation, not a lot to do as a student, but obviously I wasn't there very much, so it didn't really make much of a difference. I'll talk to you quickly because being a medical student and 4th year, I always whinged when I was a medical student about how we had all these nights and no one ever actually told us how to pay for it. I had about $100 when I went to London. And so I imagine you're all the same, unless someone's sitting on an oil rig or a family that daddy's going to pay for it. But if you're not like that and you don't have any money, the best way to do it is apply for a loan through the uni. So there are 2 ways to do it. You can apply for a HEX loan as a scholarship, which I did, and I got $2.5 grand, which if anyone's been to London knows that that'll get you till about lunchtime. And then I got another 6.7 from the university as a HEX loan. You can get these loans, everyone gets it when they apply. It goes on your HEX, and the fact that I'm actually paying tax now is better than I ever was as a student. So they take it out of your tax. It doesn't make a difference when you're earning intern cash, because intern cash is the best. I think we're upper middle class now. That's pretty good. And so don't worry about it. I think that the most important thing is you're a student. You're not going to have this opportunity to go overseas again. So get all your applications into Monash. They're very bad at telling you how to get the applications done. If you go see them, you just have to figure your way through it. You have to fill out all the forms, send it in. if you've never borrowed money from the university, you're pretty much guaranteed to get it. I know a mate of mine he's doing music, so he thinks he'll never reach the tax-free threshold, so he's just borrowing money from uni. I think he's got 3 loans from the government, and he's just going to be a musician forever, so he doesn't really care. But like he's going to try and get a 4th loan. So if a musician can get a 4th loan to travel Italy, like your medical students can get 1. So apply for the grants because they're really fantastic. I should probably talk briefly about my actual elective. I lived just outside of London, so everywhere in London is 40 minutes away, which is what you'll learn. So regardless if you're going one station or at the other side of the city, it always takes 40 minutes. I'm not entirely sure why. It's super bike friendly, so if you can get a bike, it's great. Everywhere, so, motorists aren't actively trying to kill you like they are in Melbourne. They like more passively do it, which is nice. And it's just like you don't move anywhere in traffic anyway, so it's very harmless to ride your bike in London. Travel is everything's expensive. Like I came back here, everyone was talking about how cheap alcohol it was in London. So we'd go out for a pint, and it would be like $12 just at the cheapest place you could find, which is absurd. Accommodation we had for like £150 a week, which is like $300 a week, and that was very cheap. We had people who are earning incomes in London living with us because they couldn't afford to live anywhere else in London. But London is the single most impressive city I've ever seen. It's totally worth it. Like I had no money and I was able to survive by being a bit frugal and, occasionally not paying for the public transport and, doing that kind of stuff because like you go to Westminster, you go see the Tower of London, you watch the London Eye, and it's just like the best city in the world. You don't want to go there as a doctor because they don't pay their doctors at all. I'm not sure if anyone's aware of that. They earn like equivalent of about 40 grand Australian a year, and it costs about that much to live in London, whereas we do significantly better than that in Australia. And I would recommend traveling around Europe. It's a fantastic experience. It's so cheap to travel around Europe once you're there. Like you can duck down to Spain for a weekend, a friend of mine did that thing where they throw the tomatoes at each other. Everyone just traveled every weekend. We'd meet up in Hungary, we'd meet up in Berlin. It's an incredible travel experience. But yeah, so my piece of advice would probably be to decide where you want to go and what you want to do. If you want to travel, make it clear, make that your primary focus from early on. I would advise you not to be so focused on your careers yet. I was always keen on peds. I did 1 rotation in med as an intern, actually doing doctor stuff, and it just completely changed my mind. And I think I want to be a general physician, God help me. But so if you see me crying later down the track, that's because I've made bad life decisions. But seriously, like, don't worry. When you're applying for these training programs, there's so much to it. Doing a 5th-year rotation somewhere isn't going to be what gets you into a training program or not. My best piece of advice would be realise that you are a medical student. I'm an intern and I still don't know anything. I'm not very useful to patients or the team. And so you guys are even less useful. And so just remember that when you go to these countries and think a little bit selfishly, think about what you want to get out of it. I made it clear that I wanted to travel early and I wouldn't have changed that. I know guys who had the best time of their life. One guy went to Edinburgh with us and got called from his consultant asking him why he wasn't there on a Saturday. And he was in Edinburgh getting very drunk with us at the Fringe Festival. And he was just like, I love it. He loved it. He loved being in theatre. He loved the obstetrics that he was doing. But at the same time, like, he made that clear that that's what he wanted and he had a great time. So I'd strongly recommend organising something because the only people who have bad elective rotations are people who don't organise anything and get stuck doing some Monash elective. And the other piece of advice I would offer you is that Melbourne, to do an elective as an international student at Monash costs you nearly $2,000, which is stupid because we hate Monash. I work at Monash, but Monash is like, it's just what we have. And people in London, peds gastros in London were flying to Melbourne to learn all they could from the Children's and from Monash Children's. So we're being trained in the best paediatric institute in the world, kind of thing. These people read about the Children's, they use the Children's guidelines everywhere in the world. And that's just what we have, you know, like we're getting the most incredible like medical experience in London. If I would ask 3 questions that were half decent as a 4th year student. I'd ask about immunisations and they'd be like, wow, that's incredible. You know about immunisations? Wow, like there's medical students here don't. And you're like, are you stupid? Like, so we're very well trained. You're all going to do fantastically well. You're all going to get jobs. You're all going to be very well paid. Just to go have a good time. Apply for the HEX loans, try and get scholarships because those you don't have to pay back, and just like do what you want. Like travel if you want, go to the Children's, go somewhere in Australia if you want to create the connections. Fantastic idea. Royal Children's Hospital is probably one of the best paediatric hospitals in the entire world, and it's literally it's just in the city. We don't really care about it that much. So I just would recommend taking this opportunity because it's a lot more difficult to work somewhere like London, Tanzania. They're the only 2 countries I can think of at the moment. I know London's not a country, but seriously, take the time to travel, experience as much as you can, and if you're in rotation 5 and you are in London, go to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival and drink as much as you can and sing on the bus with drunk Scots because they're awesome. So just experience Scotland, experience London, experience Germany because it's just the best place in the world. And I would recommend it. And if you have any questions about how to get money out of the university, feel free to email me. I'm in colorectal at the moment, so I have about 10 hours sleep since Friday, so I probably won't respond straight away. But I'll try and get to you. And if I don't, just keep emailing me until I do. Or I file harassment lawsuit, one of the 2. All right, thanks guys, have a good night.
Sorry guys, I know that ran over time, but I hope it opened your mind to the possibilities and what you can do. There's lots of resources, they are on the slides, so I'm not going to go through them. But good luck with planning your elective and make sure you contact the speakers if you have any questions. Thanks.
It's all good? Let's grab that.
Oh yes, this is just that.
That was a good way to finish.
Thanks for your help. Now, I'll just put it all and I'm assuming it will. I clicked stop sharing.
Okay, sweet. That should be all good.
It's a bit long, but hopefully opens some.
Yeah, do it.
Thank you, Ryan, for coming. Have a good night, guys. I know it's embarrassing.
What is that?
There we go. Thank you very much. See you later. No, don't look at it. Oh, there you are. Okay. That is. I'll drive to Kyneton. No, Kyneton. Stay the night with Jake. Halfway. Get up. Start at 7.